Hello everyone, so for our first conflict of interest out here, we're going to take a look at Israel and figure out what is happening out there. So first of all, taking a look at the Gaza Strip, of course. If you've been following this conflict or you've been watching the past couple of videos, as per the past, I believe about 3 days, we haven't had a ground update. At least the ground forces have not moved throughout the entire Gaza Strip. Although that doesn't mean that there isn't, of course, activity out here, since we can literally see it being reported on the map. But it seems that Israeli forces are not really moving as much throughout the Gaza Strip. And from what we can see right here from this report, we can see that the reason why is that Israeli troops seem to be, raiding houses of senior Hamas officials and also just clearing out the neighborhoods out here. Because as we can see, the Ashati refugee camp is super dense out here. And also, just looking a little closer, we can see all these clinics, hospitals that are out here, and we can see that these clinics out here are kind of just in the same boat as the Al Shifa hospital was, surrounded by three sides by Israel, but also seemingly facing unoccupied Israeli territory, areas that is probably occupied by Hamas. And, just looking at this area in general, not just medical clinics, but also seemingly mosques and just other religious centers out here. So, as we know, as you've probably heard of the story that happened relatively recently of the Israeli soldier launching a stun grenade at a mosque in West Bank. So that, of course, that soldier was, disciplined accordingly, from what I understand, either relieved of duty or whatever it was. So, trying to stay away largely from, more Al Shifa hospital incidents and other incidents, regarding places that would be more or less contentious. In terms of that, I can see why Israeli troops are not pushing further and seemingly just trying to consolidate and clear out the areas that they are already holding. And also just, in regards to the tunnel systems that are still going on out there, trying to clear those out. Yeah, so that's just Gaza Strip right there. And West Bank, we can see, a few more clashes going on out there. And I mean, of course, as long as this conflict rages on, we're just going to see more of that. And now, Hezbollah, what I really want to talk about in terms of the hostilities that are going on between Israel and Hezbollah, is that most of these are just mortar strikes. Most of these are just artillery strikes. And, apparently the only shots that are by Hezbollah that are being reported are just, 10 mortar shots and maybe an airstrike out here. But from what it seems, this is calming down. And as we talked about, Iran, saying that they're not going to personally step in, because what they're saying and claiming is that because Hamas did not warn them prior. So yeah, anyways, I'm expecting most of this to pretty much either calm down, although it's probably mostly just going to be this for the rest of, this conflict, however long that may be. But yeah, that's pretty much everything that's going on the ground. Let's take a look at some footage out there. Now, looking at this footage out here, first thing that I wanted to talk about is, of course, just these tanks that are operating out here in this pretty dense area, albeit, not as narrow as some of the streets that we've seen prior, but still, this is a neighborhood in the Gaza Strip. So what I really wanted to talk about is that most of the footage that's coming out here is that all that we're really seeing are Israeli troops seemingly moving to positions that are already have troops stationed there, or heavy equipment such as tanks or other construction, or I suppose rather deconstruction equipment in this case. Um, so that's what I really want to talk about, is that this is just most of what we're seeing are just clearing operations done by Israeli troops, seemingly trying to clear out, these high-rise buildings as you expect, like we talked about the tunnel systems that are going throughout the Gaza Strip. From what we understand, from what we've seen, are pretty extensive. And of course, the ability of Hamas and I suppose the nerve to have tunnel systems under hospitals and other areas that are supposed to house civilians and are supposed to be humanitarian centers. So this is obviously going to be extensive and very likely very painstaking operation by Israeli troops. So That's what I'm suspecting to happen, at least for now, is just a massive clearing operation of, central Gaza and other neighborhoods, especially, the very, very dense areas that we are, of course, seeing out here, are probably what we're going to expect to see throughout the rest of the next probably few days. And of course, we can't have conflicts of interest without talking about Ukraine. So we got a map update out here in the Klishivka area, and this is the only area that seems to be updated, and I'm surprised that we didn't get an Avdiivka update for today, but what I really want to talk about out here is, of course, just this update. And so as we can see, Russian forces are seemingly pushing out further towards Ivanivsk out here, just trying to bow out of Bakhmut, and just, in terms of what we've been seeing as per the past few days out here of Russian movement in this area, seemingly trying to consolidate the area around Bakhmut, is what I'm assuming is probably what's going on out here. I don't think that they're going to make a massive push um, towards Ivaniska and Chasiv Yar. They might. I mean, it's possible, but if they do, of course, it's going to be another. It's probably going to be another kind of Bakhmut Avdiivka out here. It was really, really tough for them to take this city, town, whatever you might want to call it. Of course, Wagner forces being attrited so hard that after they weren't really much of a force. So just talking about that, of course, I'm just assuming that they're just probably going to try and make a bit of a buffer in case Ukrainian troops wanted to push and take Bakhmut back. What's left of it out there. But other than that, that's the only really ground update we had out here. Which, talking about lack of a map update, we can see here that Russian forces seemingly having 45 combat engagements with Ukrainian troops out here. So that's a bit of a downturn in terms of, the past few days, since we've been seeing around 60 in the upper 50s, seemingly downturning about, a fourth, going down to 45 combat engagements. So maybe it's a wind down, maybe it's just a regrouping of Russian troops, but we'll probably expect around this number for the next few days. So some of the footage that we're getting out here, this is the Avdiivka area, and it's surprising considering that, we didn't get a map update, but if, we take a look at this footage out here, we can see why. This is a column of Russian armor out here, and as we can see, they were seemingly stopped in their tracks. So just in terms of, what we're expecting, we're probably going to see more of this happening out here. The harder Russia pushes, the more losses we're probably going to see in terms of their equipment and, other mechanized and possibly infantry losses out here in Avdiivka. And just, furthermore, just generally more losses. And, I'm sorry, the quality isn't great. That's just the nature of this video. But of course, other than that, that's probably what we're really going to see. Further coming from Avdiivka, and as I talked about, in terms of just Avdiivka and where the direction is going, Russian troops are, of course, encroaching upon it. And, it's not another Bakhmut, but it's definitely going to be another tough fight that the Russians are probably going to, put tooth and nail to get it at whatever losses they may be. So, expect more footage and more high attrited Russians out here. And what kind of update would this be without talking about Myanmar, of course? So, our next conflict of interest out here, just talking about this clip that's coming out of this area. What I really wanted to show is not that, they're putting sticks of dynamite in a catapult, which is, interesting, of course, which in general is kind of in line of the footage. Of course, dense foliage and launching sort of makeshift projectiles at Myanmar troops out there, which is, like I said, about in line of what the footage we would see prior to Operation 1027 out there. So why I wanted to show this footage, why did I want to show at least these stills of, these young guys operating out here? Because of their location. Not that it's, of course, like dense area, but what we seem to be, where they seem to be, are trenches. They are operating in trenches. So the fact that they aren't seemingly ambushing in the middle of nowhere out here, but rather taking pretty, as we can see, entrenched and dug in, fighting positions out here, albeit it might not be a deep trench with, boards and sandbags and whatnot, but there is a front line, as we can see. If there's a trench, that means there's a front line going on out here. So, just talking about that, we could probably expect, if this is the kind of footage that's coming out here, probably stagnant front lines, but also probably more traditional warfare in terms of what we're expecting. Less hit and runs and more just kind of the stuff that we've been seeing, of course, recently, of a lot of heavy fighting, of course, in the really dense cities and kind of towns that are out there. It's, as dense as they can get, in these areas that have not as high populations as, population density as we've seen in Gaza Strip and, of course, Ukraine. But just talking about that, we're going to see, like I said, perhaps more, I suppose, quote unquote, traditional warfare going on out there. Alright, so for our last conflict of interest out here is, of course, Sudan, and this is, as we've talked about, Omdurman, which is the second largest city in Sudan, and there is some pretty heavy clashes going on out here, which these are the Sudanese military, which, at first glance you might not be able to guess that, but, it's not, I'm not trying to say any specific thing really about them. But I mean, just looking at the footage out here, you would think that these guys are irregular troops, at least in the way that they seem to fight. So just take that as you will. It just as to how this war is being conducted and how these guys are fighting out there. Of course, it's a very dense fight, and that's not to say that it's any lesser of any kind of war or warfare, because people are dying, people are suffering. There are people being displaced because of this conflict. So, the reason why I really wanted to bring this up is, of course, hostilities are still going on between the Sudan and the RSF out there, and of course, of which the RSF seemingly is, uh, giving Sudanese, government and the military themselves a pretty tough fight out there. And um, if Sudan can somehow pull it together with these guys out here, then I guess good for them, considering the things that I've heard about the RSF and the things that they've seemingly done out there. But I just haven't. I've heard a lot of very negative things just coming out of course, just this conflict and just Sudan as a whole. So I really hope good things will eventually come out of this. But from what it seems, they're really in the thick of it out there, and just expect probably more footage like this, if not worse, and just this conflict to go on, probably a decent amount longer. So that's all I really had to talk about here for today. The only thing I really wanted to mention is that I read an article which I will link down below, and what it said was that apparently after the October 7th attacks, apparently a lot of Gazans hold Hamas to be uh, more favorable in their eyes. And, what I really wanted to say about that is I don't think that Gazans as a whole are bloodthirsty for Israeli blood. What I really think the reason why they hold Hamas to be a higher standard is, well, number one, like stuff like this, that Israeli troops have seemingly completely cut off the Gaza Strip and are starving it out as a whole, save for uh, ambulances and other aid that seems to come to Gaza, which as we've talked about, Gaza needs about 100 aid trucks a day to sustain the amount of people that are like displaced out there. So just that's one big reason. Is of course just the Israeli attack, but also Hamas is spinning it in a way that, you know, they wouldn't have attacked if they didn't think that the people would be on their side, right? This wasn't just a let's go and just see how much damage we can do. This was calculated, not just in terms of the actual military aspect of it, but in terms of the information space and the way that Hamas is trying to spin this, which, of course, as we know, not even it's not just people of Gaza who are having a more favorable view of Hamas. It's just the broader Middle East and other countries who are just seemingly sympathizing more, not just with the Gaza Strip, but just the whole Palestinian situation as a whole. So, just talking about that, I'm not surprised. I'm really, really not surprised that people are having Gazans, and just people in general too, are having a higher view of Hamas themselves. So, it's just unfortunate. It's really unfortunate that this conflict has boiled over to this point, and we've just gotten here, and seemingly we are, eh, just knee deep, waist deep in this conflict, and we haven't even seemingly touched the bottom yet. So, anyways, that's all I really want to talk about for today. If you got any questions, comments, leave them down below. And other than that, thanks for watching.